Hello, everybody. So I'm Darren. I am the general manager of Rocket Pool, or Rocket Pool, the core team. Um, I'm otherwise known as Langers in pretty much everywhere else. So yes, it's great to be here. It's great to be with these guys. Chatting about the month.
Cool. I can go next. I'm Benjamin Hunter. I work at bloXroute Labs. I'm the protocol developer. I built our MEV relay and our MEV builders on Ethereum, and I'm also trying to contribute more to our BSC MEV implementation as well. So, if you guys don't know what bloXroute is, we're a DeFi trading tool suite for I guess anyone trading on the DeFi platform for Ethereum, Polygon, and BSC. So if you are looking to win some more trades, check out bloXroute Labs.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh, or also known as Jagmod. I work for Allnodes. We host 70 plus protocols, including, of course, Ethereum, Solo Validators, and Rocket Pool as well. I'm a product specialist over at Allnodes, and I've been with the company for a little over 2 years now.
Perfect. Thanks, Langers, Ben, and Josh. I'll do a quick plug for Rocket Pool. Rocket Pool is Ethereum's decentralized liquid staking protocol that allows you to either run a node that's fully permissionless and starts out with just 8 ETH and some RPL, or you can liquid stake by holding the rETH liquid staking token. So, yeah, we're intending to have these spaces a little bit more regularly. As Lang has mentioned, the idea is to talk about whatever has occurred over the past month. And it always seems there's a lot going on. Um, Maybe since we're still just coming off the round of introductions, we could each share a little bit, as much as or as little as we like, about some of the recent news for Rocket Pool, bloXroute, and Allnodes, respectively. Any kind of recent updates, exciting things coming up, or any opportunities to kind of get involved in anything happening in those respective three ecosystems. And we can go in the same order again, I think.
Hey, so yes, there's there's a fair amount going on in the Rocket Pool kind of space. We're talking to a lot of kind of new, I'd say partners. I'm doing air quotes, but kind of like collaborators. In terms of there's a lot on the kind of like multi-chain interoperability kind of area on like trustless Oracle stuff, on like wallet integrations, DeFi integrations. There's a whole heap of stuff kind of happening in the ecosystem kind of area. In terms of like our roadmap, that's progressing really well. So we've kind of started actually building out some of the roadmap. So we actually haven't put out our announcement about it yet, but there's some stuff, really cool stuff coming along in the roadmap. So you've got a release called Houston, which will focus on our governance and kind of side of things. So it'll give our protocol DAO essentially on-chain power, which is awesome. And then we're also scoping out the next release after that, which is called Saturn, which is going to have a whole bunch of stuff in, which is going to be really good. So, and that builds upon a release that Ethereum will be putting out, which is the Dankun release. So it kind of has loads of cool stuff in there. So it's things like we got this mega pool thing where it essentially makes the protocol super efficient. Yeah, so there's lots and lots going on, but I'll pass back to these guys.
Yeah, I definitely echo there's lots going on. I should have got some more information from the other engineering teams at bloXroute, but I can share what I do know of. If you guys check out our Twitter, we see a ton of new partnerships almost weekly right now with our Protect RPC and Backrun Me. products, which are protecting people from harmful MEV, but while also helping them profit from helpful MEV on the chain, which is a really cool feature of Background Me. We also have the BSC MEV implementation, which is growing really well right now. We have around 10 validators. I think it's 11, but I couldn't get a confirmation about that 11th validator yet. So, but we have around 10 validators working with us on BSC to fulfill bundles and private transactions. So if you're a searcher on and you're looking to get better trades on BSC, take a look at our BSC implementation. And then also our ETH relay recently, we've been improving our global availability. So I think I've been bragging about it on Twitter a little bit. We have the #1 relay right now. And it's kind of funny. I feel like there's some things you do as an engineer where you think it's going to have a small impact on something. And then that ends up being the largest contributing change to a product. And then the things that you're working on that you think are going to be the hugest impacts, even if they're even when they're released, they don't have the huge impact. But anyways, we got the #1 relay right now for max profit on Ethereum. So if you are a validator or a single node operator or inside of Rocket Pool or whatever you're looking to do, take a look at connecting to our max profit relay. I'm sure there's more, but I don't want to run off from the list. So that'll be it for bloXroute updates.
Sure. For Allnodes, we don't have any specific coins or protocols that we're running. We're just keeping everybody updated. So if Allnodes, has a Rocket Pool node running and they upgrade, their smart nodes system, we then of course will be upgrading. Or if say Dash upgrades or even bloXroute, they upgrade their MEV protocol, we're updating that as well on our system as well. So we're just focused on continuing to upgrade new updates as they come about from the different teams that we support. And then we're of course adding new protocols as well. We'll probably be over 75 soon and maybe 80 either at the end of the year or by the beginning of next year as well.
Great, that's clearly busy times for everyone. Let's jump into quite a big topic. It's been quite prominent not only in the past month, but quite a lot this year, and that is restaking. So this is a relatively, I suppose, new and emerging concept, at least as much as proof of stake is still relatively new for Ethereum. Maybe we can start out by talking about what exactly restaking is. It's a phrase, a word that gets thrown around quite a bit, still very much in the early days in terms of implementation. And it's probably important to talk about some of the opportunities, some of the risks involved. Maybe we can go in the same order for this one, and then I promise as we get a little bit further through, we can change it up. So maybe Langers, you could quickly share an overview of restaking and any thoughts, and then we can flow on from there.
Yeah, sure. So the very general kind of definition of restaking is that it's essentially reusing the staked ETH to as like a trust mechanism to help other networks grow. So Ethereum has obviously has this massive kind of trust network of stakers. It'll be good to kind of reuse that trust network to help other networks grow. So this could be there's a lot of at the moment that this is what's kind of difficult about restaking is that it's very, very open on what those networks could be. So it could be L2s, it could be social networks, it could be pretty much any decentralized protocol needs some sort of crypto economic securities, needs some sort of way to ensure that people play by the rules. So this is what it's trying to do. I mean, from my perspective, it definitely is a double-edged sword. It's something that has some massive kind of potential, but also has massive potential to kind of undo things a little bit. But I think for me, in the end, innovation is going to happen anyway. We want this whole protocol. We want Ethereum to be permissionless, and so people should be able to build stuff on Ethereum, and we need to kind of embrace that. I think the only thing that I would really like to see, kind of like for the future, is to make sure that the risks are made very, very clear to people who are kind of getting into it, and that they're transparent, and so that everyone can effectively manage their risk. Because if there's any kind of like opaqueness about that, then it makes it hard for people to manage their risk. So I think as long as they can manage their risk effectively, then it should be pretty good. There's a bright future, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a really cool. I don't know. It's a deep topic. It's cool to explore all of the facets of it, and I think there's a ton of good discussion about it online. I know anything that anything that Vitalik comments on is always something that you should be researching and trying to see why it's got his attention as well. And I know he's got some thoughts on overloading validators, and then kind of how do we choose when to hard fork, and does this introduce network instability into Ethereum mainnet? All those things are really good to start researching with this stuff. I don't have a lot to say about restaking, but I think I put it in our Google Doc. I got some questions with rETH about how you guys are feeling with Eigenlayer listing rETH as a liquid restaking on there, and I'm super curious for your guys' take on that. But we can talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, I think probably coming back to my previous point, is permissionless. So people can do kind of what they want. As I said, I think it's we're going to kind of like monitor the situation. To be honest, we don't really see it much more different to any other kind of like DeFi protocol, to some degree. So, and as I said, I think the only real problem is if the risks are opaque, then people dive. I mean, the swiftness of growth does concern me slightly, in the sense that I'm seeing people kind of like FOMO a little bit, and I'm and whenever I see FOMO, I feel a hesitancy. But as I said, it could be very, very good for kind of stakers generally, and whether that's like native staking or with liquid staking tokens. So I'm kind of like cautiously optimistic about the whole thing.
For Allnodes, we allow people to actually use Eigenlayer on just the L1 portion, not any sort of liquid staking. So we have had a few people try it out on both mainnet and testnet, and it's been very easy to set up, and they can just choose to do that themselves through Allnodes or through themselves if they're running their own node. So at least right now, of course, the risk of cascade is very small because they're doing it at a slow and measured pace. So for us, we're just more interested in seeing how they move forward, and how everybody gets rewarded, and the first protocols that actually start working with it. I think that will be really interesting to see, and we'll kind of all be watching and learning as we go.
Yeah, you're right though. It's definitely going to be people doing whatever they want with their own assets. Like Darren said, it's permissionless. I'm already trying to restake my rETH on there, but they I think it was shut down. I think they're opening it back up, or maybe it's already opened back up for it. But I've already tried to do it, but now I can't. So I definitely want to try it. I guess the biggest thing I'm curious about with restaking rETH How does that tie into the tokenomics of your guys' liquid staking?
So I don't know if it really kind of affects the overall tokenomics, but it might play into like some second order effects, which are probably the other hard ones to kind of like spot. So that's the thing that we're definitely kind of like keeping an eye on, was whether there's any of these like second order effects that we have kind of coming up.
Gotcha. What kind of second order effects do you guys think could be affected from this?
So on the kind of like native staking side, it's more about if they essentially if they get slashed, and they've kind of like over committed to eigenlayer, it means that they don't. There's no reason for them to exit, and which doesn't that wouldn't be a very good situation. So that's the sorts of things that we're kind of like keeping an eye on, and we're actually kind of like working with the eigenlayer team a little bit on some of those things.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's kind of the whole overloading concern, right? But I guess it also makes sense if they're not exiting the pool, even though they're slashed. It's just, yeah, the whole thing is really interesting. There's so many facets to it. So
Yeah, it's certainly a contrast to see so much activity around a topic in what is otherwise a relatively muted market. Okay, let's move on to a more technical question, and we can maybe continue with Ben from bloXroute. And this is one area where you probably have quite a lot to say, and that is relays. So I'll just pass it over to you to perhaps go into a bit more detail, wherever you think's best. What are the kind of latest developments and trends, and what are we looking forward to in the world of relays?
yeah, I kind of eat, breathe, and sleep relays right now. Um, yeah, there's a lot going on with relays. Talking about EPVS, we see new updates to that. Um, I don't I don't know if I would say it's coming soon, but it's definitely underway. There's a lot of good resources going towards that. The Ethereum Foundation just hired someone to focus on that full time. So we're definitely seeing some big developments toward that. I know a lot of the relays are also helping to contribute to that. Um, Recently, the coolest development, it's not, I don't know if it's cool, but it's cool to me. There's a lot of articles recently about the role of relays after EPBS. Basically, everyone's saying that relays are still going to be existent because they fulfill a service that enshrined PBS won't be able to fulfill still. Um, I would go into the weeds, but I feel like this probably isn't the right Twitter space for that. So there's a lot to talk about with it. Um, but yeah, I have a couple notes too. But I'll pass it on to Darren if he wants to say anything about relays while I look at my notes.
I'd be interested in knowing a little bit more about that. To be honest, Enshrine PBS is probably one of the things that I've least researched. I'm definitely I'll be definitely interested in learning a little bit more about that.
Cool. Yeah, I think I have some notes about OFAC sanctions and stuff that we can talk about in a little bit too, because I recently had some new thoughts about that today with the Tornado Cash lawsuit. But yeah, the Enshrine PBS, basically the current flow, right? We have builders sending blocks to relays sending those blocks to validators, where the relay is a trusted middleman between the builder and the validator. So moving that into a trustless solution, you kind of give up some of the features that relays provide to builders right now. And I think there was one feature that was for validators that couldn't be replicated on EPBS. I'll have to double check that document one more time. Actually, I'll tweet the document. We can pin it to the top so everyone can follow along with that. But basically, a lot of the large builders in the space right now are MEV searchers, and very large MEV searchers at that. So sometimes people think of these DeFi traders that just dudes in their mom's basement, which is true for a lot of them, but there's also massive firms and tons of money being thrown at this. And so one of the types of trading that they're doing needs to have what we call block replacement or block cancellation, where basically they can update what their best bid is for a block at a given slot. With EPBS, once you place a bid, that bid will be used if it's the top bid. There's no bid replacement. There's no latest bid from a builder. It just doesn't exist in the scope of EPBS. Sorry. I think that's probably the biggest easily digestible difference between EPBS and current PBS landscape. But I think that I think there's a lot to do with it too. I mean, OFAC and regulated relays, how those operate in the enshrined PBS is going to be different as well. So we'll have to see what kind of assurances EPBS can provide for that. But it'll be it's going to be an interesting development. I'll work on getting that tweet out though with the document that Mike Nutter released for it.
So speaking about OFAC, so you mentioned that there was some you made some notes on that. What sort of stuff is going on with that at the moment?
Yeah, so there is something that I retweeted today about one of the sections of the lawsuit against Tornado Cash, citing issues about a OFAC designated like sanctioned address, like a person on the chain that shouldn't be fulfilling transactions. We shouldn't be fulfilling transactions for them according to OFAC, right? Them sending their tokens to another address, which is a brand new address, no one knows about it. It's definitely not OFAC sanctioned, and then them using that address to interact with the blockchain, right? So that's kind of like a touchy subject when we talk to large validator sets when it comes to what compliance looks like for OFAC sanctioned lists. Kind of like, do you also sanction addresses that have interacted with an OFAC sanctioned address in the past? And now it looks like this lawsuit might be hinting towards that, which just makes regulated relays much harder to run. And also it makes it much harder on validators to ensure that they're not violating any compliance laws. But I'm definitely not saying that is the case right now. But it looks like that's kind of hinting towards something that could be a lot harder for compliance to be enforced.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like kind of compliance at a very low level is just incredibly messy, and can't really be done properly. It feels like you need to kind of like push compliance further up the stack, and do it. Or even more at the kind of like analysis and kind of like risk management level, rather than trying to take a permissionless system and make it permissioned.
Right. And then, just like when you take away that trust aspect, you kind of lose a lot of the features where that trust, you can easily extend that trust, right? So it's going to be interesting. I do wonder though about Allnodes with the compliance and OFAC regulations. If you guys have any strong like pull one way or the other on a infrastructure level for compliance.
So we do actually offer regulated relays only, where if somebody wants to protect themselves because they are OFAC compliant, they can do that. Most of the clients that I've spoken to, they are more interested in just being agnostic or not I'm blanking on the word, the not centralizing or not compromising any sort of Ethereum network thing. So they want to accept all transactions. So it's really dependent on the client and what they want. And we haven't seen any sort of regulation yet as far as that.
Yeah. Also, I guess with Rocket Pool, since you guys are super decentralized with your node operators, or I guess the mini pools, I wonder, is there any pressure you guys are getting as a organization to enforce OFAC regulations on your, I guess, your node operators?
No. So, I mean, we're a decentralized protocol. The core team is kind of like an organization, but the protocol itself is kind of like a decentralized organization. So, so that's kind of like one element of it. Our node operators. So the one thing that we strive for is that we just give our node operators choice. So it's more that we're kind of like a collective community rather than we're not a single entity. So so that actually makes things easier from our perspective, in the sense that we just let our node operators choose based on their demographic, their jurisdiction, and all of that sort of thing. Because that's the only way really that our validator set stays decentralized. We have to have minimal control over our node operators. And so even a lot of our upgrades and that sort of thing, they upgrade to them. They opt into those upgrades and all of that sort of thing. So we have very little control. It would be a lot easier if we had control over our node operators, but we don't. So it does make life interesting, but it is also a strength that we try to cultivate as much as possible.
Yeah, no, I think it's great that you guys are so decentralized that it sounds bad, but I think it's great that you guys don't have control over that, because I can see that easily being an overreach. So that's cool for the space.
Does EIP 4844 affect relays in any way? Does it because with the transmission of like blocks and the sidecar blobs and that sort of thing, have you had much to do with that?
So I haven't done a ton of research into it yet. For this space, I was reading a lot more articles about it just so I have something intelligent to say. Um, the one thing I just have a concern about today, and I actually just messaged Uri K. He's in the he's in the Twitter space, wondering how the 16 megabyte blobs, like that's the limit right now for a blob size, how that affects block building. So I need to look more into it and see where that blob exists and how that will have to be transmitted and broadcasted as a block. But that's a pretty big size chunk of it for a transaction. And right now, one of the big relay things is like speeding up block submissions from builders and propagating those to relay or to validators quickly. And the larger those get, the the worse that's going to be for us. So I'm trying to figure out more about where that 16 megabytes lives, and if there's if there's an easy way for that to be improved for block submissions and block building.
Yeah, because I think like what is it? Latency is extremely important between like validators, and I know that that latency between relays and validators is very, very important too. There's a very short amount of time to prepare a block, so it will be interesting to kind of see how that works.
Yeah, we see the latency games with relays being super important. Especially, I think it's definitely important on the validator side, right? We don't want to cause them a slot. But on the builder side, getting those late block submissions saved faster, they're like way more profitable for the validator. So figuring out a good solution to get those available faster will be key, I think, for relay compatibility or competitiveness or whatever. Competition. There we go. That's the right word.
It's funny because the validator supply side, I think very rarely of of like the builders on the other side. So it's always good to kind of like chat with you guys, because you have that kind of like view of the full I guess the full supply chain. That's actually a good point. If you get the information to the block builders as quickly as possible, then they can actually make better blocks, or whatever metric they want to use for better blocks, but definitely more profitable blocks for them.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to pin this tweet to the Twitter space, but I can't do it from my computer, and it won't let me do it from my phone unless I'm on the Twitter space from my phone. So if someone's able to pin that latest tweet that has the write-up from Mike Neuter about the role of relays after EPBS, which is a great document, and if you guys want to contribute to that, definitely feel free to drop a comment on there. They love to discuss this kind of stuff.
Okay, sure. Let me see if I can get that done. While I'm looking at that, we do have a question for you, Ben. Maybe you can share a little bit about one of the relays that you've made some changes to. I don't know if it's possible for you to share the details. Maybe they're too technical. Maybe it's a bit of a secret. But what kind of work goes into that process in terms of improving a relay to make it more successful?
Or what's the question specifically? We've made a couple changes recently to relays, but yeah, can you clarify what the question is?
It was pretty general, to be honest. So I feel like feel free to talk about either both or just in kind of a general sense, whatever you're kind of happy to share in terms of the process of what kind of work would go into making that happen.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the relays there's a lot of moving components with relays. They have to handle a lot of network requests from the validator side, large payloads from the builder side, and many of them very quickly. So there's a lot of areas for improvement across the full scope of a relay. So some of the improvements we've done recently that have definitely shown to be successful are some infrastructure updates that we've done. I don't know how deep I can go into those, but we've been working on improving latency to cross regions for our builder side. We've talked a lot with different validator sets about how we can extend that to the validator side as well. So we will be working on some improvements there to help with them. I don't want to share too much information right now. It can get super technical. But one of the things we're working on right now is some gRPC integrations powered by our BDN, our blockchain distribution network, which are really going to speed up performance for these cross-region block submissions from builders in different parts of the world. So yeah, that's I guess that's as much as I can get on the max profit. One of the big updates we've done to one of our relays is we actually completely got rid of one for our ethical relay. We found out that only 600 of the 300,000 validators registered to it were uniquely registered there. So we weren't really creating a product that fit the market need at the moment. So we took that offline for now. We actually had a lot of people discuss that with us afterwards. And it sounds like there might be more of a push, more of a cultural push for validators to run with an ethical relay. But we're going to wait to see what that looks like, what that market looks like before we consider bringing it back online. We just want to make sure we're running a product that makes sense for a good product market fit.
Nobody wants the ethical. Nobody wants to be ethical. Is that the takeaway?
the TLDR is that money matters, I guess. Money matters.
Your max, but funnily enough, your max profit relay is much more popular than your ethical relay.
Yeah. It's not just that too. It's all of the relays, right? Our ethical relay was the only relay that was filtering out transactions that were like quote unquote unethical, which are like front running and sandwich bots that are, I guess, taking advantage of a bad trade on the market. And so every other relay, they'll put those through, including max profit. Those are very profitable for validators. And so, yeah, it's easy to it's easy to spin up your MEV boost with the default Flashbots config, and Flashbots obviously is going to have a more profitable block than the ethical relay would, including those transactions. So it's just I don't know. Like I said, I think it's a product market fit right now. Though it seems like after bringing it down, we've kind of stirred up the pot on some discussions about do ethics matter in terms of validators. So it's a fun topic.
Yeah, it's certainly very grey. Actually, speaking of Mike Nudia, he's got another proposal, which is the max effective balance proposal. We've been kind of looking at that a lot over the last few days, actually. Well, we kind of like saw it originally and kind of thought, oh, that's an interesting one. And so the idea behind it is, so the minimum stake will still remain at 32 ETH. So you'll still have to stake 32 ETH to be a validator, but the max amount. So at the moment, the min and the max is 32 ETH. So you can you have to stake 32 ETH, but you can't go above 32 ETH. In other words, all of your rewards get skimmed down to 32 ETH. And you can't really deposit any more on one validator. What this proposal suggests is that it's actually an improvement to help with the network layer of the protocol. So the idea is that if you increase the max effective balance or the maximum balance and allow people to kind of deposit more than 32 ETH, it means that you need less validators, and less validators has less of an impact on the peer-to-peer network because we're growing very, very quickly. The number of validators has grown so quickly and far beyond, I think, what most people kind of like expected. That it's the peer-to-peer network is. I wouldn't say it's necessarily struggling, but it's definitely there's definitely kind of like cracks forming. So we need to kind of get a little bit ahead of that, and so that's what they're kind of proposing. So the idea there is that people will consolidate their validators into a couple of validators, meaning that there's less actual network traffic and all that sort of thing. There's a few other benefits as well. I think it opens up a little bit on. I don't know the logistics of this, but it opens up PBS a little bit. And it also apparently helps with single slot finality, which is pretty important for like getting rid of the possibility of multi-block reorgs and multi-block MEV and all that sort of thing. So yeah, so it's a really interesting proposal. We've kind of looked at it, and we think it's fantastic from a product from a Ethereum perspective. From our perspective, we have to make some adjustments, but it's not terrible. It would work for us. So we're kind of like working through that at the moment, and we've got some like questions, and we'll kind of like help, I guess, hopefully guide that proposal. Have you guys had much to do with that, or?
Yeah, it's kind of on the side of things that we don't work with. It is definitely interesting to see development in there. I've had questions about it as well, like. Do they get more attestations, or do their votes, or do attestations weigh more with that?
Yeah. Yes. So yes, and like this, the slashing is obviously increases, but it basically it stays the same. How you have multiple validators, it kind of the slashing risk is still the same.
Gotcha.
And the other thing is the probability of getting a block, because that was obviously the thing with having multiple validators at the moment is that the more validators that you have, the more chance you have of getting a block, because you've got more tickets in the lottery, essentially. But with this approach, they've actually changed it so that the probability is weighted. on your stake. So it means that you still have the same amount of chance with more stake on one validator as you do with multiple validators. So what that does is it kind of incentivize it, or it incentivizes or doesn't de-incentivize the consolidation of validators.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I feel like when you're consolidating validators into a single, or you're consolidating many validators into a single large validator, I guess, you kind of introduce a single point of failure, right? Where if you had, say, 500 validators across 5 nodes, if one node goes down, you're only getting hit a fifth of the time. But if those 500 validators represent 10 validators on the same node, that might be a much bigger impact, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these larger kind of like node operators are running those on like single nodes anyway. So like they obviously risk manage and spread them across multiple nodes, but there's still quite a lot of. But from a validator, so you've got the node itself, and then which is like the machine. Oh, I'm saying this for everyone's benefit, not just yours. But there's the node, which is the actual machine, and then you got the validators, which are like the individual kind of like consensus units, right? And so usually they're on one node anyway. And that's probably the risky part. Having them consolidated under one validator probably doesn't makes a better difference, because there's less overhead for that node from a network perspective. So you can actually run more validators on there. So, but I definitely get your point in the sense that there's a risk and liquidity trade-off, right? Because if you load up your validators, it means when you exit, you have to exit the whole thing rather than kind of like smaller validators. You have less granular control over the exit. So I think there's definitely, I think it's good because it will result in consolidation, but it will. There is kind of like a kind of like a feedback loop a little bit in terms of security and like liquidity as well. So I think that it would be interesting to see how much consolidation we get. From Rocket Pool's perspective, it's funny because us consolidating is probably going to make the least amount of difference. So larger players have thousands and thousands of validators on their nodes, and I think our median is 2. So I think our average is 8. So we, because we've got something like 3,000 node operators, our validators are spread quite across a lot of those. So so it will be interesting. I think we're still going to kind of like support it, I think, but we're probably the least valuable from that perspective.
Yeah, actually, I found out recently that one of my coworkers at bloXroute, Peter, he runs a mini pool for Rocket Pool himself, and so I was bugging him about trying to learn more about the liquid staking tokens and how all of the different tokens kind of tie into each other, so that you can run a validator with 8 ETH. It's a really cool product. I tell people about it, and then they ask me how it works, and I always tell them, like, I have no idea. I need to learn more about these tokenomics there.
Yeah, the hardest part of onboarding like new people, that if we hire somebody, is getting them across what Rocket Pool is and how it works, because it's quite involved. I've spent my whole career here just explaining what Rocket Pool is.
I think it's the same thing at bloXroute, trying to explain what MEV is to someone who probably doesn't even fully know what DeFi is, which is how I was when I first started here, trying to understand the MEV space and all of the facets there.
Yeah, that's right. That's the problem with a lot in this crypto space, is when you're talking to some normal person, they'll say, "Oh no, what do you do?" And you say, "Oh, liquid staking," and to give them the context of like you have to follow that chain of context all the way along, and so it's very, very difficult to try and explain. And MEV, I can imagine MEV is exactly the same. It's like you have to know a little bit about kind of how blockchains work, a little bit about DeFi and trading and all of that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of context you need to break down for them.
Yeah, you have to like explain 5 steps before MEV, before you even get there. Like, well, do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? Okay. Do you know how stocks work? Okay. Well, this is finance. This is what a dollar is. It's just so much you have to build on just to explain to someone what you're actually doing day to day. And I just tell people now, I work in blockchain, and they ask me what I do. I'm like, it's too much, man. It's too much.
So what we could do is I think so. There's a lot of events kind of like coming up. Are you guys going to any events or anything?
Yeah, so we actually were just at ETH Toronto. It was only a few of us there, but we met with a couple of the Toronto-based crypto people. It's a very interesting space over there in Toronto. But we're also going to be at Singapore for Token 2049. We're going to be in Austin for permissionless, I believe is what it is. And I believe we're going to be in Istanbul. I'll have to double check about that. I was trying to get a list together, but it's after hours, so it's hard to get a hold of the whole list. Let's see. Jagma, we do see you here. I don't know if you can hear us.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, cool.
I was just enjoying the conversation. I was going to add one small thing on the rocket pool, which I think is really cool for MEV, is that they have the smoothing pool. And so that really eliminates, people from, getting one proposal on their validator and say, oh man, mine's really unlucky versus the person who gets, 6 or 7, or, even if they get the same number, but one person gets 0.05 and somebody gets 3 ETH, that's huge too. But for Allnodes, we are going to be in Istanbul for Cosmoverse, and also for Token 2049 in Singapore as well. So if anybody's there, please, come and say hi.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be fun. So we're doing Singapore. So we're going to be at ETH Singapore and Token 2049. And we're also going to be going to Istanbul as well. So for DevConnect. So there's a lot of like the DevConnect one is quite cool because there's a lot of staking stuff. So there's like the ETH Staker gathering, and there's like the staking summit as well. So we're looking forward to kind of both those. I think Token 2049 is going to be interesting for us. It's our first like non-ETH denominated a conference. So that is going to be kind of like interesting for us to kind of walk around and see what's going on. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, actually, I just got told we're going to be in Korea for Blockchain Week as well.
I'd like to check out Korea actually, because they have a massive market of for crypto in Korea. It'd be good to kind of like see what it's like on the ground. And there's probably some stuff that that doesn't kind of like translate into crypto Twitter and that sort of thing. So the entire crypto world doesn't live on CT. So but it would be interesting to do that as well.
Yeah, one of the cool things is learning about the crypto industry in different countries and regions. There's a regular Twitter space every week called the Farmers Market. They recently did one about DeFi or crypto in France. And then also just this week was crypto in Africa. And it's interesting to see the culture impact, kind of what they're building and what they see crypto being used for. So it's interesting. Definitely a different perspective all over. Yeah,
that I can imagine that the the kind of value that they're taking away from it is very different, or the angles that they're taking at it are very different. So yeah, interesting. I'll check that out. Thanks. I think we're probably, Mav, do you want to kind of like start wrapping us up? I think we're coming up to time.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Another hour gone by pretty quickly. Lots to talk about. But yeah, thanks everyone for spending some time up on the stage, chatting about some of the latest news in the staking world. So going forwards, we're going to aim to have these films a little bit more regularly. I realised I probably said that during the last one, and when I went back and checked, I think that was in April. So maybe once a month is a better kind of tempo. Thanks, of course, to everyone who's been listening in the audience. We can do maybe one final round of any other news or anything that you want to share. From my part, I'll cover Rocket Pool. We also have our own weekly Twitter space, our community call. We're planning out the next few, which will go through Singapore with a few different guests. So if you're keen to join, obviously the Rocket Pool Twitter is a great place to stay up to date, but also their Discord, our Discord is pretty active. And you'll also find a list of the different events as we load them in that will eventually include where we are kind of speaking and involved in Singapore too.
Yeah, not much to add for the bloXroute side. Definitely follow bloXroute Twitter. There's a lot of updates. Definitely check out the new partnerships we're having with our Background Me and Protect RPC protocols. Really cool to see those develop. I feel like every day I'm seeing a new tweet about it. So take a look at that. Then if you are a DeFi trader in the space, take a look at our documentation, check out our website. Definitely want to help you out win more trades.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. It was a great conversation and look forward to seeing everybody next month. If anybody has any questions, you can always reach out to allnodes.com, and there's a secure chat there, and we can help anybody who's, whether they're beginner or advanced, help them set up any sort of nodes or any sort of staking as well. We offer over 70 plus protocols as well.
All right, good stuff. Thanks again, everyone. Catch you in the next space.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.